everybody, and welcome to Criterion Watch. I'm your host, Jonathan Mooney, and I'm here with...
Paulie presents it known as the Moo Cow. Moo.
And I'm also with...
Hi, I'm Lenore.
Alright, so... so we are going to do a movie that Paul picked. So we're going to have Paul introduce it.
So, this time on Criterion Watch, we are watching Watership Down, which is the 1978 movie by Martin Rosen, based on the Richard Adams best-selling book. I guess for a very brief overview, it's about a group of rabbits who have this society, and they have to leave their warren, and they have to travel on a very hazardous journey across the English countryside, getting into all kinds of scrapes and mischief and problems, and experiencing life and death before they finally find a place of their own in which they then have to defend. And it's that's kind of the plot in a nutshell. But it's a whole lot more than that.
I was pleasantly surprised. I had kind of heard it was a little bit of a sad movie before.
It's got some sad moments to it, but some comedy, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the idea that like these rabbits are kind of like almost like humans in a way or whatever. Like they talk like humans to each other, though they have different words for different things.
Right, they have their own words for things. They have their own society, basically. Their own mythology, their own way of explaining the world and why the world is the way it is, and their own reasons. And it's just like a human society, except they're bunnies.
They're bunnies, and the humans are awful in this movie. It's terrible.
Humans are awful and terrible.
But yeah, we never really think about that. How horrible we are to everything else, all the other creatures. We only think of ourselves, and that in a way is kind of like how the creatures are in the thing too.
Sure, it's one of the many themes that the book and the movie explore.
To be honest, in the movie they seemed more like a bit of an off-screen danger than anything else. The other rabbit seemed like a bigger danger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the one rabbit puts it best. Captain Holly, after he's gotten out of Ephrata, he talks about when the original warren that the group came from was destroyed, and he said it was men who did it, and then the one rabbit says, "Oh, men have always hated us," and he said, "No, we were just in their way." That's really what it was.
No. I'll say this. There was a scene that I loved. There's a bunch of scenes that I loved in it, but one of my favorite scenes in it is when they're on the road and they're talking about the cars driving by, and oh my goodness, because we never think about like how an animal would think of like a moving car, as a thing, driving by, like, oh, they don't seem to be bothered by us, or whatever.
Right, and it's interesting because most of the rabbits have never experienced it because they haven't been around, whereas Bigwig knows because he's in their Ausla, so he's in the security group that has to go out and explore and patrol around and make sure everyone's safe. So he's had experience, and so he's sort of showing them by sitting in the road saying, "Oh, see, it just ignores you," and the one car goes right past him and it doesn't bother him. But then the next car comes on the other side and just almost hits him, and he gets all flustered. And
Didn't they call it the Roodoo-Doo?
Yeah, they call it a Roodoo-Doo.
Roodoo-Doo. Like I said, they had some strange names for everything. Like fox was something.
That's kind of like an onomatopoeia because you can understand the car going, so that's what they call it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think a hombo was a fox, and I forget some of the other terms.
Yeah, they had a fox that they called.
Lady?
Was that?
Sorry, she's
okay.
No.
okay.
But it's interesting because dog and cat were still dog and cat.
Right. Which, yeah, that is interesting. I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think it might be because they heard the humans call it a dog and cat?
Could possibly be.
So they just, it's a dog and cat.
Right.
I don't think they hear, the foxes are coming, from humans.
So the Criterion version of this comes with this great booklet. And it's got some very interesting information there. So one of the things I wanted to mention was that the beginning opening sequence is quite different from the rest of the film. Pardon me. It's kind of the animation was actually done by a guy named John Hubley, who did stuff like American cartoons and excuse me. I think he was. The book says that he invented Mr. Magoo and did a lot of slapstick kinds of cartoons, and that he drew inspiration from the sort of Aboriginal art of Australia, which was why in the beginning you see the sun the way it is and the animals the way they are, and it's very, very different animation than the rest of the film. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the line, apparently, there were creative differences between himself and Martin Rosen, who was the producer at the time, and they left. And as a matter of fact, the book says the Black Rabbit ended up coming for John Hubley not too long afterwards because he died of a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And Martin Rosen took over the production, the writing, and the directing of the film. So the rest of the film pretty much followed his vision of it. So that's one interesting aspect of it. And then the second interesting thing that really helps make the film is the voices who voice the characters. It is an amazing cast of top quality Shakespearean level actors that lend their voices to these roles and really bring them to life.
Were all of them British?
Most, I would say, yeah. I would think, if not all, but you've got John Hurt, who's always amazing. Richard Bryars, who's fabulous. Sir Ralph Richardson. You've got Roy Kinnear. You've got Denholm Elliott. You've got Zero Mostel, who had a great
we'll talk about him in a little bit because we have a whole thing about him.
Fabulous. Nigel Hawthorne, Joss Ackland. There's all kinds of great voices, and it really, really takes the movie from here to here. Mm-hmm. Although, we could talk about the animation itself. Gorgeous, absolutely beautiful film. Colors are amazing.
Does the Criterion? Can I see? Does it have any commentary?
It does. Whoa.
Sorry. Yeah. Let's see. It's got an interview with director Martin Rosen. Mm-hmm. And it's got an interview with filmmaker Guillermo del Toro.
Oh yeah, Guillermo del Toro loves this movie.
About the film's importance in animation history. Picture-in-picture storyboards and a 2005 feature. So it doesn't have commentary, but in a way, the interviews I'm sure will be long enough where it'll feel like you'll get enough. It's called Defining a Style, a 2005 featurette about the film's aesthetic, which wonderful. So it's got amazing special features on such a. I really enjoyed this movie. When Paul showed it to me today that we were going to do it, I try not to argue with him anymore, on things like, oh, goodness gracious, because he usually knows what's a good movie and what's, and what's not. So I was just excited to see this, mainly because I'd heard of it and everything, but I wasn't sure, just wasn't sure if I'd enjoy it or not, and I did. I really liked it.
Well, I saw it in the theater when I was, 12 when it came out, and I was lucky enough to see it first run, and I was just blown away by it. I hadn't really seen an animated film that was, A, beautiful, and then B, it took on such, serious themes. This is not a children's film, and I think early on when it first came out, it was kind of looked at as, it's an animated film, it must be for kids. Well, you can show kids it. I certainly saw it when I was a kid, but the themes are a lot more adult, and among other things, it definitely talks about how we are surrounded by death in the middle of life and how it affects every one of us. And, it's interesting because, the humans in this world seem a lot more powerful and a lot stronger than all the little bunnies and everything, but the Black Rabbit comes for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We're all everything is temporary. We're all gonna end up going the same way, and it's not the sort of thing one usually addresses in a movie, essentially for kids. So that's why I say this isn't really a kids movie. It's more of a movie that anybody can enjoy. And if I were to bring a kid to it, I might want to explain it a little bit ahead of time, but I would definitely show it to them.
Yeah, I would explain it to them that this is not like your typical like Disney, animated kind of movie or something.
It's
This is
an anti-Disney movie.
I don't think it's anti.
Well, because there's some violence, there's some blood, there's some suspense. I mean, there's some really suspenseful time.
There's some scary scenes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, there's terrifying scenes, especially with the two rabbit colonies fighting each other and stuff. You just don't know what's gonna happen. And
General Woundward is a nightmare.
oh my god,
He's like one of the greatest cartoon villains of all time.
he is.
You know, it's amazing.
Kind of reminds, and to go to Disney, kind of reminds me of Scar from, maybe they adapted a little bit of Scar, Scar to be from this, like, it's terrifying. He's a terrifying villain, for kids, like for a animated kind of villain.
What I love about him is that, when the dog comes and the dog starts tearing up all the other ones, he's like, dogs aren't dangerous. And then the dog comes for him with teeth and claws, and what does he do? He goes right after the dog with his own teeth and claws. It's like he's not backing down.
It makes sense that he'd think that because he spends all his time in the Warren.
Right.
I like that because at the end they say, like, did he live or did he die? Nobody knows. Nobody ever saw him again. But they say, if you mess up, or whatever, if you're a little kid and you mess, or a little kitten or whatever,
right.
and you mess up, the general is coming
General's
after.
gonna get you.
Yeah, which I think is great.
It's funny.
Once again, it goes to the thing of like these bunnies are very much like a human society,
right.
Or whatnot, making you think like, when you see a bunny out there, is it gonna, are you gonna feel the same way? Like it makes me like wonder about bunnies when I see them now.
Yeah, and it's neat how they have their own creation myths and their own mythology and their own religion. In their world, God is called Frith, and the Prince of Rabbits, after they created all of them, is El Hurrah.
Oh, hurrah!
And they have this whole story about how he had to become a runner and a trickster because his people became so numerous, they were eating all the grass and all the other animals were complaining. So El Hurrah was trying to say, Frith was trying to say, you better control your people. And he was like, our people are the strongest. And so he gave a gift to all the other animals to turn them into monsters that preyed on him and said, all the world is your enemy, prince of 1,000 enemies. He says, but they have to catch you. So in order to make things balanced, he gave the bunny the ears to hear things, the back legs, the strong back legs to do the running and all that, and to be clever and to be a trickster.
Did they explain the part with the tail, or was that just a bonus?
I think that was a bonus, the shiny white tail, the bunny tail.
Well, no, because he blessed the bunny by the tail, right?
He blessed his butt.
He blessed his behind, so so that's when it, like that I saw as like it got blessed with the bunny tail and everything. I thought that was cute.
Shaking that butt.
I know. It was a cute freaking movie. Like it had some really great moments to it.
Oh yeah.
Before we go into grim moments and stuff and things like that, I do want to talk about the lightness in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedy to balance the grimness, which is good.
Especially from what's his name? Keel?
Oh, yeah,
Kihar. Oh my god.
The seagull.
The seagull who at first, I guess, was he wounded or something?
Right, he's a very unlikely ally. He's a seagull that they find when they get to their new place, and they help bring him back to health. And the idea that they're planning is that if they help him, that the bird will search around and fly around and find does for them, because even though they managed to finally get to their new warren, they don't have any does with them because the one that escaped with them, hawk comes down and swoops it off. It was a terrible scene.
Poor Violet.
I know, they're all like, Violet's gone, and they're all like, there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, technically there wasn't.
I know.
And at first, I mean, I was sad, but then I was like, I didn't really get to know Violet enough. Like, I didn't get to. She wasn't around long enough for me to get to like.
What I liked about it is, the bunnies were clever, and they made it so that they made the bird think that it was all his idea to go find them mates. So he's like, you dumb bunnies, you have no mates, you have no chicks.
I don't know how they did that though, because like how they convinced him, because like the only other scene right before that is like the funniest scene, in the world. What is it? Kiag is going like this way, and then
his butt.
What was the other one?
Bigwig.
Bigwig was right behind him, trying to get through, and so he's just like, "Screw it, I'm just gonna push right through him." And he's like, "Ah, yeah." He was like the funniest character.
So yeah, Zero Mostel does the voice,
Oh, God,
and he plays him in such a way that he's very, very larger than life.
Well,
and
he's definitely the funniest kind of character in it, because he and you could tell it was a comedian, doing it, like somebody who's so used to comedy. Because everybody else was like Shakespearean, like true actors, and I'm sure they, enjoyed doing like something that was a very serious movie, but had some of these late moments that kind of just took you out of all the seriousness and just gave you something fun to watch.
And the best drama always has that little bit of comedy to sort of break the tension, and that's exactly what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And it's even a matter of good timing, because there's a scene where Hazel, who's really the de facto leader of the whole group, gets shot, and we don't really know what's going on. And Fiverr, who's the little guy who saw the whole thing coming, they go to tell him, and he's like, "I don't believe it." And he goes off, and he starts seeing visions of the Black Rabbit, and he follows it down there, and then he finally finds Hazel by finding this trail of blood that goes into a pipe. And you hear the beating heart, and you're like, "Oh goodness, is he alive? Is he dead?" And then you cut, and here's Kihar back again, to sort of relieve the tension and bring a comic moment.
But he also comes and helps get rid of the bullet from Hazel.
And take out black stones.
And he just starts eating all black stones, which is weird because there's only one black stone, right?
No, shotguns probably shot a bunch of pellets.
Okay. So there you go. But yeah, it was sad that that happened. However, Hazel, continued to help out, and all the way up to the end, up to the end.
Sorry.
I believe it was Hazel who came to the general and offered his life. Right?
Oh yeah.
And stuff, and then they said, "Nope, we're not gonna let you do that." And then he even tried to do it to their god. Was it Rod? Was the god's name?
El Hara.
Not that one. The original god.
Frith.
Frith. I think, didn't he say something to the gods and said, I'll take me.
Oh yeah, they're all saying, you can. There's always somebody trying to make a bargain, but there are no bargains.
There are no bargains. So it was. It was kind of sweet. It's like, in life, that's kind of what it's trying to say. In life, there are no bargains. There are no. You have to defend yourself. You have to survive, or if you get eaten, you get eaten.
And the thing is that you look at the characters. Hazel's definitely the sort of quiet, smart leader of the group, the one who keeps everyone together. Bigwig, even though he's the biggest, he's kind of the protector of the group. He's the strongest one, but he's not really the smartest. But he doesn't have to be. He's the fighter of the group. And then you've got little Fiverr, who's the visionary and sort of the heart of the group, and he's the one that whenever things look like they're about to be deceived or things are going to get bad, he's the one that kind of urges them on and gets them moving.
And that at one point, and so in the story there's a part where they go to another borough and they see these other characters, and what was one of them was called Cowslip, and they were everything all the other animals were happy except Fiverr was scared and ran off. So I'd rather just go out into my own world, and
he could tell something was
wrong.
Yeah.
And then they figured out what happened is the whole place is rigged with wires and other things, and it's just basically one big death trap, and just staying there would be dangerous. And what's his name almost dies. Bigwig almost dies.
Yeah.
Almost dies. I was sad. I thought he did die. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, you shouldn't probably be watching this, by the way. Bigwig almost dies. Does not die. He comes back to life in a way.
Right. And his group is the one that helps him. The other rabbits don't bother. They say don't even bother because they're fatalists at this point. They're just waiting for their turn, and they're accepting the free food, but they know that it's only a matter of time before one of them is going to die, and so they don't care.
Right.
And so one of them has recites a poem, pretty much a death poem, where he's talking about a stream taking me on your dark journey, and that's the thing that finally sets Fiver off. Is like, that's it, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, this is getting kind of like, there's something wrong with this place.
And it's funny because they go into the warren and they note that it's clean, that it's much bigger than it probably should have been, and there's all this great stuff. There's like cabbage and carrots and stuff in there, and they say that the man brings it to them, and they're like, why would the man do that? And one of them even questions and says, do you think the man just gives it to us out of the kindness of his heart? And everybody in the audience is like, no, we know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But they don't know. They're innocent, It's only
Yeah,
until
actually,
Fiber figures it out.
I got the impression that Cowslip wasn't so much fatalist as it was that he was trying to lure them in to reduce the chances
Oh, sure.
of anybody in his Warren group.
Oh, sure. You bring in more necks for the noose. The odds are better for you to live.
Right. And because you could tell, because like there were all the other rabbits were like hiding, from everything, and they were talking amongst one another
Right.
and stuff, and trying to.
I don't know I guess you guys haven't read the book. I've read the book, and in the book, that whole section is much longer, and they sort of go into more detail. But the thing is that with this film, I mean, this is already a little more than an hour and a half long. You probably really couldn't do much more with it. So I thought they did a pretty good job of condensing that section.
I'm glad they didn't, because Criterion usually has movies that are like 2 hours to 3 to sometimes 4 hours long, depending on the movie. And I see an hour and a half for this movie. I think that was the perfect time. Like, no, didn't need to be shorter, it didn't need to be longer. This was just the perfect length for the film, because it kept my attention throughout the whole thing. I have a short attention span. You've seen it. So anything like this just will. I mean, and I didn't grab my phone, which is a good thing. Big thing for me.
Right.
For the my attention span is dwindling.
So Lenore, we've kind of been taking up all the time here talking. Let's hear your thoughts about the film.
Well, the first thing that really stood out to me was actually the first sequence with that artwork as they explain the rabbit's religion, which was amazing. It was amazing artwork. It was well written and everything. And then other things popped out, like in Cowslip and the others in that one warren.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that they had surprisingly really realistic proportions. I think they were hares, not rabbits.
Okay.
They looked like it.
I think Woundwort was a hare.
Yeah, but I noticed their arms looked along with their paws too, which is.
I know he seemed to hop very differently than the others. So he was kind of like.
Yeah, that's why I said. That's why I thought they were hares at first.
Mm-hmm.
But
They probably were.
But,
You know.
yeah, their proportions were a lot more realistic for rabbits, which made them kind of creepy looking.
I know, and it was funny because I think he said something along the lines of what we need is dignity. It's kind of like, that's why I got the whole fatalistic acceptance of their situation.
Dignity and death, or yeah.
Right. So what else?
Well, Woundwort. Okay, he was just creepy.
Yeah.
All kinds of creepy. Half blind. His other eye was blue, and it looked like it was glowing. But those rabbits, they all had blue eyes, and it was creepy.
Oh, the Africans, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that might have been a reference to like Aryans, to Nazis.
Well, possibly. I think it's also a reference to the fact that they talked about how the warren was overcrowded. So you've got to think there's probably some kind of inbreeding issues going on, because they were talking about how they couldn't really produce litters anymore. And that's one of the reasons why that group wanted to leave and start a new warren. And of course, Woundwort and the others don't like that idea, because now they don't want to give independence to this other group of rabbits where, before they had it all under control. They had it so that everybody belonged to a certain group. You can only go out to eat during your time. And it was all very structured and hierarchical. And, just like human societies are like that, and they don't like people to go off and sort of do their own thing. They want to control you.
Once again, very selfish and very, like, you know what I mean? And which is funny because that's our human nature, and so it's kind of comparing that human nature and like animal natures are similar,
Certain plants that are only set aside for the Ausla or for the the hierarchy. It's very interesting, and it's one of the themes that the book and the movie hit upon.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
What about the animation? We've all seen a bunch of animated movies. What did you think about that?
Really, I don't know that much about animation to say much about its quality, because I did notice it seemed like there were less frames for it, but it was just really pretty looking anyway.
And a lot of depth too, I noticed.
Yeah.
A lot of detail, and you could see very far. The world seemed realistic.
So you said, I believe, that in the beginning of our show, you mentioned that the animation changed from one to the animation that we saw later in the thing from the very beginning.
Right.
With the, because I noticed like what a lot of them look like peace, like had the peace sign, like on the characters or whatever. Like when they created like the wolves and the other animals, or whatever, not just the rabbits, And then they had all the rabbits get killed in the beginning except for the one who, got made king of the rabbits and got to run off. Was that animation style changed because of the direction that they decided to take after?
I think so. I think that animation belongs to John Hubley. I'm not 100% sure. I think they talk about in the booklet that not everybody people don't really exactly remember where the disagreement happened and who exactly contributed what, but certainly they think that part of it is more his style, and it's a little more of a flat, cartoony kind of a style. But it was used in such a way that it really helped the movie because it's there to explain the mythology and the background of it. So yeah, it was really kind of the perfect setup for the more realistic, naturalistic kind of animation that follows it.
Right, which, I hate to say it, I like the naturalistic, whatever the stuff that follows it more. Sure. But it was a neat like beginning,
The different animations work really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like because you see like the like the credit sequences and
right
others.
And you can tell a lot of effort went into the animation. This is not one of those, Tennessee Tycoon where it's just the same background over and over and over. It was really, really beautiful. The details for all the plants, for all the movement.
It looked a bit like something out of some of the children's books I had as a kid, where it was all watercolor and charcoal and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, inside the Blu-ray, there is a special sort of discussing the animation, and I think Guillermo del Toro goes into detail with that. But I know they took a few people from Disney, and they took a few people from other aspects, and they had a number of different artists from all different kinds of mediums who ended up working on this, and they did it in such a way that it's pretty much unique. And I think that's why Guillermo del Toro talks about how this was a sort of landmark in animation for its time. Because it blended in so many different styles and was just, visually just an amazing film. And I can tell you, it really, really impressed me when I was a 12-year-old kid watching it on the big screen. And I'm sitting there in front of us and you get to see it. It was just an amazing experience.
Definitely.
And the music was really, really good. Both the orchestration and the song.
Yeah.
One song, right? Like
right, the one song.
With Bright Eyes. I like that by Art Garfunkel.
Right.
Yeah, wonderful song. Very sad, like it was definitely. And you said, and talk about that a little bit, because you mentioned earlier that Bright Eyes, I guess, is death, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, the lyrics are talking about how can these eyes that were once so bright suddenly fade away, and it's death. It's the same death that comes to everyone, whether you're a bunny or a human or a cow. anything. Right. Whatever, however strong you were, this is the road we're all going to take. And it's a very poignant, bittersweet moment. And, it happens at a time in the film where we are really, really worried for Hazel, who's just done off this very dangerous thing and has gotten shot, and we don't know whether he's alive or not. And Fiverr has gone off to look for him, and he's the one who feels things and sees things in a way that nobody else does. And he seems convinced that Hazel's still alive, and he's gone to look for him. But we don't really know, because it's the visions of the Black Rabbit that are leading him there, and we're like, oh shit. So there's that, plus there's the song sort of setting you up to be really, really sad. But it turns out he was okay. He was shot, which wasn't good, but
he was still alive. And right after what's his name, the Kiar, saved him with pulling out the bullets and stuff. It was it was kind of like all of a sudden it was like, okay, Hazel's back. Kind of he was able to survive and continue the mission.
Right.
Which was great.
And it's interesting, you look at some of the animals, the other animals that are shown there, in passing. Like you have like the rats there, who seemed really sort of not just mischievous, but just dangerous. But they don't talk. And then some of the other animals, like there are cows that they pass by, and the cows check them out and everything, but they don't talk either. And there's an owl that sort of comes after them and doesn't talk. The dog doesn't talk. The cat does, though.
The cat does.
The cat was evil.
I didn't even expect that at all, because I thought all the other animals, I thought they could only understand themselves. Like that's what I thought. As like that they could understand their just like we can only understand us. I thought they could only understand them. However, the cat was talking to the rabbit.
And the cat was probably the most evil creature apart from General Woundwort, because there are times when clearly it had nothing else on its mind other than killing these poor little bunnies just for the hell of it. And she's got this horrible, wicked voice where she starts taunting him. Can you run? I think not.
Right.
She's got her claws out and her feet. Her teeth bared, and
she's about to do it, but then her master says, "Hey."
Yeah, the little girl.
It says, "Leave him alone." And
I think the girl's name was Ruth, because she's the one who has the little white bunnies on the farm that they let escape. So in a way, humans, while are mostly destructive, they kind of help too. They may not have meant to.
Boat,
Right. So they were able to utilize some of the things that the humans built, or even just like Ruth, the little girl herself. She stops the cat twice from going after the bunnies. So,
well, I want to mention this, and it has nothing to do necessarily with the movie except for one thing. Paul's met my cat, Obi. And Obi is a little bit of a troublemaker and everything. And he, the day before Easter this year, he brought in a bunny into my house. And he had it in his mouth. And I thought the bunny was dead. And I was like, thanks for bringing a dead bunny. He dropped it onto the floor, and the bunny started running off. Yeah. And I was like, oh, crap, we got a live bunny. So we had to get the cat put someplace where the cat couldn't get the bunny. We had to get the bunny out, and then and hopefully give it a head start so it could hopefully survive. But when I was watching this and seeing the cat, that's all I could think of is, I hope that bunny survives, because I wanted that other bunny to survive. Because just like Ruth, I think you said is the girl's name. I don't want my cats eating bunnies, not in front of me.
It seems odd though that the cat would be so dangerous, because they're about the same size, and bunnies also have claws and teeth.
Yeah, but bunnies are not predators, and cats are. That's the thing.
That's true.
And cats are very. My cat is very kind of likes to play with stuff a lot and everything, kind of torture.
They're sort of sadistic.
Yeah, they don't. I don't know if they mean to be or not, but that one, it seemed like in that freaking movie that cat was was meaning to,
Oh yeah,
be like that. So.
Dogs aren't really like that. They'll just, I mean, they react immediately on instinct, and it's almost as if the movie was saying the cats are a little smarter, so they have language, whereas the dogs maybe, are not quite as smart to have language, but kind of dumb, but just acting on instinct.
Sorry, I was closing my dog's ears so she didn't hear you saying she was stupid.
Yeah, well.
Maybe it's not stupid at all.
Joking.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a thought.
No, it was like, it's a wonderful thing where, you see the dog goes after the rabbits and eats them, because like you said, it's instinct, and that's what he knows. It knows like, hey, there's a rabbit. I don't know why.
I chase and I kill.
I chase and I kill. And then the cat is talking and taunting the poor rabbits, and then
torturing it before he kills it.
Yeah. So then, so that makes total sense.
Sure.
For that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the reason why poor Hazel gets shot is because he's trying to free the white bunnies from the farm, and they do, and some of them escape. But some of them are just sitting there because they've never been outside the warren or outside of their cage. They don't understand. So he's trying to get them to move, and they won't move. And that's when the farmer comes in with his shotgun, and he sees them, and he knows that they're not part of that group because they're not white. And he knows that that's no good, so he gets the gun and he's firing at them. And that's
I
when
don't
he gets
understand
shot.
that. Like, I mean, as a hunter, or as a human, like I guess I don't run like a farm, so I wouldn't know. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, rabbits are considered pests. Wild rabbits are, because they'll get into your garden, they'll eat up all your stuff, they'll dig holes. I can understand that.
You can understand killing a rabbit, though? I mean,
I can understand a farmer wanting to do it. I would never do that. But, I mean, in a farmer's world, he has the little white rabbits that were bred to be pets, which is what his daughter has. And then or bred for food. And then you have the wild rabbits that are pests. I don't know that those bunnies were necessarily bred for food. I mean, he said that they were his daughter's rabbits. And
I think so. I think they were pets.
They think they were pets. I can't imagine somebody giving their daughter little cute bunnies and then saying, "Yeah, we're gonna eat this now."
Yeah,
that would be kind of mean.
Yeah, though I wouldn't put it past people.
I wouldn't put it past people either. I think one of the things you mentioned, and I always think the same thing, is the dog was tied up to a peg next to a doghouse outside.
I hate that.
And it can't live beyond anything behind its 5 foot of lead. That's it. That's all its life is. It's terrible.
I can't stand when people leave their dogs out there in the cold and
tied up like a slave.
It's
awful with a noose around its neck.
It used to be like that. I think more people don't do that anymore.
Right.
Like, I don't see it as much. I've seen one of my neighbors sort of recently had done that, but didn't even it was a big dog house that he had. It wasn't like a little teeny tiny thing, but that animal didn't even seem like it had a dog house. It didn't even.
It's okay to have a dog house in a yard for the dog to go into, but to tie them up like that is just it's not really done anymore usually.
Yeah, but in the 70s when this movie was made,
Sure.
I'm sure that was a very common thing and stuff. I know my family, we've always kept the dogs inside. We've never ever left a dog out, and I guess if I had grown up that way, I would have things would be different in my mind.
Yeah, and then too, again, it's another situation where this is a farm, so it may be a little bit different for people who own a farm, and they may not just want a dog to run around and cause mischief and dig up stuff and get into trouble, and maybe get in fights with other animals on the farm. But even so, you bring the dog inside.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah.
It's a dog.
The dog is almost like an extension of the humans.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's terrifying and potentially dangerous, but in the end, they're able to use it to help them.
Right. Even though it's essentially a farm tool, it's still an extension of the family, and you still want to treat it better than that.
Yeah.
I think. But as far as the movie goes, it's just doing what's probably reflective of people and farm societies in England at that time. So, It's just kind of how it was. So, with regards to the film, it's got a lot of drama to it. It's got some suspense. It's got some comedy. It's got a little bit of everything.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I've always really, really enjoyed it. It's not a two-dimensional flat film.
Definitely not. It's got characters that you really care about. I mean, even Bigwig, who was
Sure.
kind of, I mean, I hate to say it was kind of a dick at times, you know?
He's a bit of a blowhard.
Yeah, I mean, but, like, from the very beginning, he trusted Fiverr, that Fiverr was, like, there was something wrong, so I'll go with you guys, even though I probably shouldn't be leaving my...
He's kind of like the jock with the heart of gold.
Yeah. But he was like, and plus they needed him because he was the one that kind of helps. I mean, throughout the whole story, he's the one who helps them because he is the one who can take care of them and protect them and do those things.
Right.
And he's the one who's able to be a double agent and go on the other side.
Oh yeah, and gets
everything.
into Ephrafa and he gets Woundwort to sort of take him in and becomes part of their mark.
I know, it gets marked. Ugh, that part was harsh to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And so did was it the chief from the beginning or something? The one that came back.
Oh, that's Captain Holly. He was the leader of the house of the original Warren.
Okay, all right. So I got a little bit confused. So in the beginning of the movie, there's the right before they decide to leave, Fiverr goes to talk to the chief, right?
Right.
Did he not make it?
No.
He didn't make it
He
through
didn't make
the thing. Okay. Because you see him talking, he's also one of my favorite like little characters because he's like listening to them and then he just like kind of puts his back to them, like I don't.
Oh dear, how terrible!
Oh, how terrible!
Sounds
Don't, whatever. Go do your thing, and don't bother me again with this bull crap. And then of course you never see him again because he passes. Well, go ahead.
I was actually surprised at how many rabbits chose to follow Hazel and Fiverr, because Fiverr didn't seem like he was well regarded in the beginning.
Right.
No.
But then, like, almost all of them followed his warning.
And I remember when I saw the film, and when Captain Holly comes in and he sort of gives them the tale of what happened. That was kind of terrifying. That whole thing where they fill them all in and all the rabbits can't get out, and they're all trying to like get out of that one area, and you see all their heads pressed together, and they can't breathe, and their eyes are huge, and that was really kind of scary and gross.
Yeah.
I thought, anyway.
Yeah.
Freaked me out as a kid. That was probably one of the scarier moments for me.
What about the blood in the river or whatever? Like,
Yeah, the blood in the meadow. Yeah.
Was that real or was that Fiverr just a?
That was Fiverr seeing things. That's his vision.
Okay.
So he's seeing the fields covered in blood, and that's symbolic of what's to come. And nobody else sees it, but then they all learn to trust what he's saying.
Right. Except for Bigwig.
In
the beginning, yeah. Even when he was like, "Hey, I sense trouble with these guys." Blah blah blah. Bigwig was like, "No," and he starts coming back, and then he gets. I think that was his moment of like, after getting almost killed, going, maybe I should trust this little guy because
Right.
he was right twice already. Maybe. Or whatever. Well,
and then later on, he's the one who has the vision of the dog being in the woods.
Yeah.
That they're able to use to their advantage to attack the rest of Woundwort and his followers.
Yeah, because Hazel gets that idea of like, let's set the dog free so that we can, that the dog will go and attack his. I mean, and we haven't talked about one of your favorite characters, Pipkin.
Oh, Pipkin. Poor little fat Pipkin.
We didn't talk about him. He's was a great character.
He's sort of the cowardly little guy. He's like the hobbit of the group. He's, he likes eating and he likes sleeping, but when it comes to anything dangerous, he's not really happy about it at all.
But of course, he's the one that they get to do all those things, dangerous stuff with, and he's just like, complaining the whole time, like, I don't want to do this.
He's a comic character.
Yeah.
He's a funny little guy.
Just like my favorite character, so it's funny. Who's your favorite character?
That's hard to say. it's either Fiverr or Hazel, because they're the main characters. But, because, you're supposed to like the main characters, but I think my favorite would be either, Ifrit?
Which one?
That's not his name. Ifrit?
Frith is the god.
Okay, Frith and the Black Rabbit of Inlay.
Oh yeah, the Black Rabbit's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Black Rabbit's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, you gotta say. I also like Heisenflay. Heisenflay, she's the one who comes from. She leads the group from Ephrafa. She's. I guess she's tried before and been beaten down, but Bigwig is able to convince her, and she sort of becomes the de facto leader of that group. But she's also like a mix of them, of all of them, of Bigwig and Fiverr and Hazel, where she's got the leadership.
He's got a little. She got a little Pipkin in her.
Maybe a little Pipkin, but she's also talks about how she can see things that sometimes become true. So and then it's funny because then Bigwig's like, "Oh, I got somebody you should meet." Talks just like you, but so clearly she's kind of got a little bit of all of their personality in her. So she was kind of cool.
I liked her. But I just, the only problem I had was that you didn't really get to see her much.
Right.
Like, she was kind of in it. But the times that you did get to see her were wonderful.
And it's another thing where there's more of her in the book.
Oh.
But, you can only do so much in the film. So I highly recommend, if you like the movie and love the movie, definitely read the book. The book is fabulous. It's one of the best books that I've ever read. And it's really, really, really good. You should check it out.
Well, I guess overall, I thought it was a wonderful movie. I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I didn't know going in if I would enjoy this or if I would, not.
Well, you got to figure it's going to be a good movie if it's going to be on Criterion.
It's not
most
necessarily
of the time. Not all the
true.
Time, most of the time.
And I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying Criterion you don't do a great job. Don't get me wrong. Especially Paul picking Criterion movies. Like, I wouldn't show you Criterion movies I have that I don't like. The whole point of the show is to do ones that are great. And so far, I've loved every single one that Paul has picked. However, I'll just say, like, you just don't know.
Oh yeah, there are movies on Criterion's group that I don't particularly like.
Yeah, I mean, you were surprised, I think, with Princess Bride because you hadn't seen it in so long. You do remember not enjoying it, but you were pleasantly surprised.
I liked it much better seeing it after 25 years or something like that when it first came out. Sure.
Yeah.
I like Princess Bride too.
But there are other films that just seem boring or pretentious or they just don't interest me. So, and I understand they may make a contribution to world cinema to the point where Criterion has decided that they're worthy to be restored and everything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to enjoy it. So when it comes to my turn for picking one, it's a pretty good bet I'm not going to choose anything like that.
Yeah, and same with me. Like, the movies that I've picked so far, like Seven Samurai, and which I hadn't seen before, or wait, I think I did see it.
I mean, for example, and this is a movie we've both talked about, and I know a lot of people really like it, and I don't know if it's on Criterion or not, but Five Easy Pieces.
Oh, it is.
There are a lot of people that think that that's a great film. I find it dull. I find it just not interested.
It does have that one great scene, though.
Has the great scene with the chicken and the knees. And Jack Nicholson is always worth watching. However, overall, was it Bob Rafelson?
I didn't even finish it.
I finished it. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not gonna lie. Easy Rider, not a fan. No.
I like Easy Rider better than that one, but I can see how some people would not.
It had some moments that were great in it and everything, but overall, thought it was just kind of not my kind of movie.
And there are certain films that have been considered Criterion worthy that I don't particularly agree with.
Yeah.
Not The Breakfast Club, but I forget the name of the other movie that was kind of like the big baby boomer movie where they all got together and it was all the
Big Chill.
Big Chill. Oh.
Yeah, that was the one I watched recently. Just
boring.
Found it dull.
Very boring.
I had some great moments in it. That the famous scene of them like singing and dancing in the kitchen or whatever, liked it, but other than that, like it
overrated.
It was not what I enjoyed.
Not Criterion worthy in my personal opinion.
Or I'm not a really big fan of In-Laws, I bought that.
Yeah.
Without
what
not
the
seeing
hell?
it, and I thought once again, couple great scenes, but overall kind of a boring movie. Not my.
So I don't know whether that's Criterion's way of sort of reaching out to more popular films to sort of bring in more people. I don't know.
Or maybe they think that these movies, because The In-Laws was probably a comedy that had a significant impact on political situations or whatever it was, at that time, that maybe that's what it was. Or maybe just Criterion just they liked that movie, when they picked it. But they're releasing, like I think we talked about the last time, they're releasing Matewan on
great movie.
which we just did for Film Freaks. All three of us did for Film Freaks.
And I would have done for Criterion Watch had I known, but it hadn't come to my attention yet.
Well, it's not even out yet.
Right.
October.
And it certainly deserved it. Actually, a lot of John Sayles movies deserve it. He's really great
So,
director.
I mean, the fact that it's coming out, we were really fun. It was funny because we were talking about it, and we were talking about how it needs to be out, and then it was just announced. So, Criterion.
Someone's listening to me.
Maybe that was it.
There you go.
But yeah. So the whole point is, we enjoyed this movie because this is definitely a very, in my opinion, this was a very well done animated.
Sure.
Film that had a message. The message was like, you just can't escape death, and it's a part of life, and that but what you can do is you can live, you can live your life the way you can live, and that's what I think. That's how I got out of this.
In addition to all that, it also happens to be a fabulous, gorgeous animated film. It's a landmark animated film, and definitely get the Criterion Blu-ray version, the special edition, and definitely check out the Guillermo del Toro featurette where he talks about how important this film was and how it inspired so many other movie creators later on.
What was your last thoughts on it?
I really liked the ending. The movie reminded me of The Secret of Nim.
Ooh, Secret of Nim, yeah.
I haven't thought about that movie in a long time.
Yeah. Very, very impactful animated movie.
I liked the movie a lot, actually. I liked the ending. I liked every part of it.
Even though the ending is kind of sad, but it's also part of life. You know.
Well, it wasn't sad. He lived a good life. He did what he could, and he brought everybody together at the end. So, if it weren't for Hazel doing all the stuff that he did, working together with the group to survive and be able to procreate and, make their warren last longer, if it weren't for him, doing all that stuff, because a couple of them didn't want to get the other ones.
Sure.
And he had to convince them, like, hey, look, if our warren is going to survive, we need to go in there and get some does. And, that's what they do. And I loved it. I thought that was wonderful. And,
You dumb bunnies, where are your does?
Yeah, where are your does, you dumb bunnies? Sometimes he would mix up his words too.
I know, it's good.
Bunny's dumb,
Yeah,
like
Kiara
a little
was awesome.
Yoda.
Kiara was awesome.
But it was just a wonderful movie. So if you haven't seen it and you watch this whole thing and listen to us basically tell you the whole story, then sorry, but you can still watch it.
Oh yeah,
it's
us talking about it is one thing. You have to actually see it. And definitely do the Criterion Blu-ray version. It's got all the extras. It's got all kinds of great stuff. It's got a really cool booklet right here, and you're gonna love it. Trust me on that.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely. And check out other Criterion watches. This is the last episode of the season. We'll be back in 2020. So once again, I don't know if we talked about it or touched on it the last time, but we've got a bunch of different podcasts and video casts.
Right.
Obviously, there's Indie Film Cafe, which spawned this whole thing. There's Frights the Round Table for me. There's for us. There's Film Freaks, and there's What the Fuck Fridays. And there's a few other ones that we do.
Forgotten Horror Classics has finally come out.
Yeah, he did his first episode of that. So there's a bunch of different podcasts and video casts going. What's going to end up happening is, since this is the last episode of Criteria Watch, get ready in January, which will be, I think, the last Friday in January, we'll release the next episode of Criterion Watch, it will be my turn. So get ready. I've got a great one planned. But we'll be doing that in LA. So him and I will be out there with some peeps out there doing stuff. And I think what's going to end up happening is, since Paul and I are going our separate ways, so in January I do mine, February he does his, March, so on and so forth, right?
Right.
We're both going to be hosting the show from our separate, co-hosting the show, but from our separate areas.
East Coast and West Coast.
So, yes. So, he'll be getting special guests for his. I'll be getting most likely special guests for mine. And then we'll basically be just still doing the show, but with other people, joining us, which will be interesting. I want to see who we each get, and everything.
Absolutely.
And so it'll be more for you guys to watch in a way, because it won't just be us two doing, together doing it.
I know Jess Jen is going to probably at least be in one of them. So.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Wait a minute, are you sure? She usually doesn't do the video ones, but all right, awesome. That would be great. Just give
Sorry.
It's coming toward the end, so he's like already, sneezing. Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Lenore, for being in the last episode. I'm hoping that sometime you can do more episodes for Criterion Watch with Paul. If you're
we're trying to get her to come back.
Yes, if you're around, you may still be around in there, next year. Who knows?
I hope so.
Yeah, she hopes so. Paul hopes so for sure. So
Continuity Monkey especially hopes so.
But most likely this is the last episode for Lady for a while. So I have no idea what she'll be back for. So but join us next month for the last episode of Film Freaks for the season, and most of my shows are ending in October or November, except for Indie Film Cafe, which will still be around till the end of the year.
Right. And when we say ending, we just mean for this year.
Yeah, for this year.
Come January, it all starts up again.
And once again, it's from different, West Coast and East Coast, so it's going to be an interesting 2020, I think.
Our empire is spreading from coast to coast.
I know. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we'll see. So check out sickflickproductions.com. Check out indiefilmcafe.reviews. Especially, I think we do have listed Criterion Watch, as a link or something.
We do. Find us on Facebook. Everything that we post on YouTube also ends up on Facebook.
Yep. So we got all our Facebook ones. So there you go. And we did not need the continuity monkey at all. Nope. Continuity monkey was not needed. I don't think there was no continuity.
No problems there.
So, well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and join us next year, man. See you next year.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys. Oh, and definitely keep a lookout on the Criterion Watch Facebook page, because even though we'll be gone from doing this show, we may still pop up and do little videos or something, kind of just keeping you guys all in the loop of what's going on. So, bye, guys.